60. What a beautiful day. Nice out. Whew, well, Edmonton fans pretty jacked up their team. Big win. They're into LA. And man, there's a lot of Oiler fans going to LA for the weekend, Friday and Saturday. Man, I know a boatload of people that are going. So have fun. Have a lot of fun. Let's get to the racing report brought to you by CanTorque. There are a few tools who listen to the show, but none are built as well as the tools from CanTorque. Check them out at CanTorque.com. Colin Livingston joins us once again. And Colin, let's start with IndyCar. And quite the performance down there at the Barber Motorsports Park. It was, there was lots of passes early, kind of like F1 was early, right? It was entertaining racing if you're somebody who likes to see a lot of passing and overtaking.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. Barber is not known as a really good passing track. It's, again, I mentioned this quite a few times, but for there to be a lot of opportunities for overtakes and passes, you've got to have hard braking zones. And the corners at Barber are really fast and really flowing. So it's tough, but there were a handful of drivers like Colton Herta, Joseph Newgarden, had to work their way through the field. Scotty Dixon, Scotty D, Will Power, they all managed to find a way to get through like that. And it was really exciting. I mean, it was so refreshing after watching Formula One, to really start the season and IndyCar a little slow to get started with so many 3-week breaks to start the season. Watching a driver or watching these drivers pass without actually cutting each other off. Like the Formula One move is the second that you've got your car ahead of somebody, you take away their line or you push them off the racetrack. And that's become commonplace in the Formula One world. Drivers were just, doing it with skill and doing it with, the overtake feature of the car, things like that. But they would get around, they would kind of run side by side. The driver would get out front. The next driver would kind of tuck in behind. It was really clean, really, really sportsmanlike, really, really, really encouraging to see.
So what is the I guess the respectful way, if I'm coming up beside you and it looks like I'm going to be able to pass you, what is there a breaking point where like now we look at each other and I say, okay, I'm passing you, so get out of the way, or like where is that? Is it different from series to series?
It's driver to driver, and it really comes down to what your mindset is and whether you're kind of a reactionary driver or if you're a big picture driver. If you're a big picture driver, you can start to see that whoever's catching you, you can see how far back they are. You're checking them out in your mirrors. Your team is going to let you know that, whatever. Scott Dixon is 5 seconds back and closing. They'll relay to you every time you cross the start finish line. You ran a 121. Scotty ran a 120.5. So you know that he's closing half a second a lap. You're very aware that they're coming. So when you get to these passing zones, you can do a couple things. You can get really defensive to try and make life difficult for them, which generally slows both cars down, which also means that the people who are chasing that guy end up catching you. Or you can kind of look at it big picture and realize you can contest a pass. You can kind of be defensive, but still, if they're genuinely quicker than you, you just let them go. And then you can kind of follow them and see where they're making up speed or see where they're where they're better than you are. In the big picture, usually I'm way more of a fan. As a driver, I am definitely a defensive guy. I try to be as hard to pass as possible when I have my helmet on. When we do the NASCAR stuff and work as a spotter, always thinking about big picture because we're always trying to win that championship, and we don't want to let a little mistake, be costly at the end of the year.
Colin Livingston joins us in the CanTorque Racing Report. Let's switch over to NASCAR, and they had lots of weeks on dirt and the restrictor plates. Now they go back to I don't know if real racing's a fair term or not, but kind of going back to that. What do you like NASCAR? Do they have an image problem that they're not sure what works, or is having the variety of tracks and different things good for that sport?
Yeah, I mean, identity crisis is maybe an accurate term. I mean, for me, I love racing. I love when drivers, whether male, female, I don't care what type of racing it is. I love, watching people be able to push that little bit further than another, who's got that determination, who can kind of will their self a little bit further than someone else. Um, After a couple of weeks between Talladega, which is, essentially restrictor plate racing, and the week before in Bristol on dirt, candidly, I didn't really watch any of those. I watched some of the highlights. They're not interesting to me. Getting to watch the race last weekend at Dover was great. I mean, real racing where you have to modulate the throttle, you have to pick lines, you have to, protect against tire wear, kind of all the elements that I really find interesting. It was awesome to see. Who knows what NASCAR does big picture or long term, if they're going to keep doing some of this other stuff. I mean, they've signed up for Bristol on dirt for a few more years, so we're going to keep doing that. But I think they put on a pretty good show for the most part once they got back to normal racing.
Just to look at that race, and why was it so surprising that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. got second?
Yeah, well, Ricky, he's kind of a mixed bag. For some reason, he's got the secret figured out on restrictor plate. So he's generally the guy that's going to be in the top 5 at every one of these Daytona and Talladega races. But he's also widely known to be very, very impatient and like he's largely responsible for a lot of the accidents that happen. Not entirely by himself. There's a number of drivers that cause those crashes at Talladega and Daytona, but he's either right up front or he's wiping out 15 cars. Hasn't really shown a lot of speed outside of those restrictor plate races. So it was really good. He ran a great race on the weekend. Really smart, obviously had a good car, but really patient. For me, it's just kind of a funny little connection as well. My in-laws moved down to Olive Branch, Mississippi, a couple of years ago, and that's the hometown of Stenhouse. So I always have a little bit of extra attention for him, just because now I know that little town quite well.
Now, Colin, before we get to F1, I quickly want to talk about, I know we don't talk drag racing very often, but what about John Force? We've had him on the show. The guy turned 73 yesterday, and he's still running one of the top fuel funny cars going around. Like, his career is like, he's got to be the best drag racer of all time, isn't he?
Oh, hands down. Yeah, it's not even close. At 73. I mean, candidly, I'm 48 now, and I'm starting to really feel a lot of the long-term effect of being in a go-kart. And that's a very, 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 very different animal. Dude's 73. He drives a 12,000 horsepower car. Now, like, if you say it really fast, it doesn't really sound an awful lot like anything. But I mean, those engines produce almost 1,500 horsepower per cylinder. Like, our street cars are like 250 to 300 total. These guys are like ridiculously high powered, or they're operating ridiculously high powered vehicles. The car will accelerate. Most people have never driven 100 miles an hour to begin with, but these cars accelerate to 100 miles an hour in 0.8 of a second. So it's basically like getting hit by a vehicle doing 100 miles an hour from a standing start. And, he's still doing it at 73. Like, just, it was so awesome. And he gives the best interviews when you see him in Victory Lane, man. He's got the big smile and he's talking a mile a minute, and he talks about how it was like a bucking bronco and have to hold on. And, for the meat of his career, one of his crew chiefs, Austin Coyle, or pardon me, Bertie Federley, is actually an Edmontonian. So there was always a real good Canadian connection and Edmonton connection going back to John. So.
Well, no, I just wanted to ask you about that because I thought it was amazing.
Love it.
Quickly, what's your thoughts? We're going F1's coming into Miami for the first time. Man, they're going crazy on social media. They're promoting this. Lots of big names will be in attendance and corporate sponsors and stuff. And Obviously, I think they've committed. I think is it 3 years. I think it is. I'm not guaranteed on that, but I think it is. They're definitely trying to make more of an input in North America. There's 2 American races and the Canadian one this year. There's going to be 3 races in the U.S. next year. You know, it is a continent that F1 probably realizes that they could cash in on a little bit more. What's your thoughts on Miami, and what should we expect from the track?
Track is obviously going to be a question mark. It's another street circuit, which will mean very, very limited passing opportunities for the most part. Yeah, I mean, tons of hype. I cannot remember anything even remotely approaching what's going on in Miami. I mean, they've been doing promo now, you know, obviously for a long time, but it kicked into high gear about 2 weeks ago. And like, I've seen more drivers at more non-racing events, you know, George Russell at basketball games, the Alfa Romeo drivers are with the football teams, and like people are all over the place. You know, the hype is good, and obviously any attention is good attention. I just hope it's sustainable, because you know, when you dump all this kind of money into developing the track, to developing you know, all the infrastructure that's required for these teams, if it goes away really quickly because interest fades, because it was just initial excitement, and you don't follow up with a lot of substance, it's kind of disappointing. But you know, to that end, you know, the late breaking news is that Drive to Survive will be back this year as well as next year. So they've between Netflix and F1, they just announced that they'll be back for 2 more seasons. So you know, obviously that's been, you know, massively important in getting excitement watching F1, and especially here in North America.
Colin, great stuff as always, man. Quickly, you guys got on the track for the first training session for karting. How'd it go?
Well, let's just say I might be a better driver than I am a mechanic. I really had some issues yesterday with I had a wheel come off. I had my throttle cable disconnected. So I really didn't, you know, we normally run in the high 40-second laps, and you know, I was doing engine break-in stuff. I didn't go faster than 1:20, just because you can't really overtax your engine. So hopefully I can get out before next Wednesday. I really don't want to walk into our first race without having completed a full lap at speed. But yeah, nobody will be hiring me as a mechanic. Tighten up your lug nuts,
eh? Tighten up your lug nuts. It's kind of big. Like even Struds and I know that one. Come on.
Yeah, buddy.
Well, technically, yeah, it wasn't a lug nut. It was the wheel hub. But yeah, for a guy who's in the business of providing tools to tighten things, this is quite embarrassing.
We'll bring our toolkits over and take a look, buddy. We'll be there later.
Yeah. I won't turn down the help.
Oh,
Get
God,
it up on
I'd
a
love
jack.
to see
I'll get
Struddy's toolkit. Oh,
yeah. Everything you need. Some WD-40 and a lug nut wrench. I'll fix it.
Oh, yeah.
Geez, duct tape would go a long way too.
He always brings a spark bucket too, Connor.
Yeah.
Colin. He always has a big spark bucket. Okay. Thanks, Colin. We'll talk to you next week.
Hey guys, thanks a lot.
That's the race report brought to you by CanTorque. Their future.